It's Nolan.
Shouted was the church girl, straight up out the neighborhood. Good at two shoes, taught to fight for the greater good. Daddy was a preacher man, never spared a ride. You talking church and stable, homie, always on the job. Older brothers got the date in their early teens. She could just sit back and dream, couldn't wear them tighter jeans. Only wanted simple things, had to play the music low. Mama couldn't save her. Little did she know she was a victim, not an angel. Her body forming, she suppressing the growth. Wearing shorts when her uncle comes, she gotta put on more clothes. Them good grades ain't enough to be trusted. Smart girl in a complex world where the evil's abundant. Couldn't wait to hit college. Now she kicking it with them thug niggas, drug dealers. Introducing her to the plug business. Hitting the parties in them towns that you don't go. Spring break, baby, got it bouncing like a pogo. Pops trying to call her phone. She too busy getting flown. Dropping out of class, never home. She been in the zone. She trying to find herself and explore. But the dropping it to the floor, got her hunger for more. She was raised in a home of restriction with no description. Act right, or you face jurisdiction. Father submission, niggas live it too. But that's a whole nother tale. You can't cry, they gon' think that you frail. You gotta live with them L's. They don't know how that shit can affect your psyche. It's a thin line between slave code and working for Nike. It's an even thinner line when we talking liberation. The world quick to judge, no kind of consideration for them church girls coming out of they shell. Probably need a day to John, but she fuck with a trail. Got a taste of the fast life and think it's street in the well. And I'm just hoping she could love on herself. Yeah.
What's going on, beautiful people? It's the kid J Nolan here. Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Industry, your number one source for music, entertainment, commentary, and breakdowns. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Now, as y'all should probably know, the year is winding down. We're about to start a whole new calendar situation. And with that, of course, the news cycle slows down. The controversy is slowing down. People are resting, spending time with family. Folks are working, you know what I'm saying? But as far as the news that's going on in entertainment, they're preparing for the new year. Folks getting their albums together, getting their rollouts together, you know, the whole nine. So it's kind of slow right now. We're kind of making do, but I always want to kind of come to y'all and bring conversations to the table. So I've been seeing this video going viral of a creator called Lore Breakers that has a projection of where Beyoncé may be going with this whole Act 3 and what to expect, right? Some of y'all real, Beehive, y'all already onto this. Y'all already in the game. Y'all know what's happening. But they're projecting that she's going to go in the direction of, I guess, blending funk, soul, and rock. They're comparing her to music legend Betty Davis. She did dress up as Betty Davis for Halloween this year, so that definitely sparked some rumors and people thinking she was going in that direction anyway. It wouldn't come as a surprise because we've seen Beyoncé kind of delve into that direction a few times throughout her career, even going back to her first solo song, Work It Out, was kind of in that kind of, that soul funk 70s, late 60s, early 70s vibe. We've seen her dip her toes in that direction a few times, but it could be, again, going into a progressive rock style as well, kind of like taking where all of that leaves off and goes into like the Jimi Hendrix vibes of the world, you know what I'm saying? Because Betty Davis did work with Jimmy. She was married to Miles Davis, who's, of course, a legendary jazz musician, but, she went on to create music herself. And she has like a very rich history in music. I'm not the person to like give y'all the whole rundown background of all of that stuff. But this Lore Breakers account came out and kind of gave us a little bit of the Easter eggs that Beyonce's been putting out there to show, where she may be going. We can't say this with 100% certainty. She could give us a hard left turn at any time. If people start getting too close with their predictions, maybe she would change something. I don't know. But this whole 3-act album presentation and everything has been long in the making. So I don't really see her making any sudden changes at this point, unless it's something that's just like, this song needs to be cut, or we're going to do more vocals for this, or we're going to make some production changes and add some chords, or, minor things that wouldn't throw off the timeline. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up this video. I want y'all to already be warned. It does have an interesting voice. I had to clean it up because originally they had, you know how folks on TikTok be having them fucking SpongeBob voice and shit like that. It gets hella annoying. I had to go in and call it audible and manipulate the voice a little bit to make it a bit more tolerable, because this is not a short video, but I want to give it the opportunity because especially with what Beyonce just did with the Netflix halftime show and everything the other day, which definitely, if anybody had been kind of counting her out, or maybe you forgot about Beyonce in the midst of everything else that's going on in entertainment and music, I do believe she's about to snatch the moment in 2025 once again, and it might even be a bigger endeavor, you know, because a lot of folks wasn't on the wave with the whole country shit with Cowboy Carter. A lot of people, you know, they said it was cool for what it was. A lot of people said, I'm not finna listen to this. Not even Beyonce could make me listen to no country music or Americana or whatever the fuck y'all want to call it. So there's been plenty of people that have been on the fence about how they're supporting what she's doing. Of course, Act 1 was very much house inspired. Act 2, you know, you get the inspiration from country, Americana, bluegrass, all that different type of stuff. But now Act 3, we're looking at the possible funk, soul, rock, right? So again, we're going to pull up a video and just see what they got to say for us.
This is the cover of Del Resto Echoes, Travis and Beyonce song. Zoom in and you'll see an ad on the first page of the paper that reads Betty Black Tour Sold Out. On page 14, the ad is 25 characters. 1, 14, 25. Also notice how this photo of the papers lays on grass that is similar to the grass of the football field that we see in all of the promotions of the Beyonce Bowl, making these two even more cryptically connected.
Now, for those of y'all that follow Beyonce, y'all know she's really into numerology. She plays with the numbers and stuff like that. We all know, you know, I think her and Jay-Z have a really strong affinity for the number 4. You know, all that good stuff. I don't get into all of that, but if you're into those things, y'all know how she gets down. But they did the whole numerology breakdown with the 1 page, 14, whatever the fuck that shit was. They saying that was already giving y'all the date ahead of time. And now with the new 1/14/25 coming after the performance took place, that's a confirmation that she was already, you know, giving us the little pass, but we weren't ready to receive it. All right, I'm gonna let them continue.
On the other page, you can see that you'll win tickets. The Echo paper premiered on the Renaissance World Tour over 2 months before Del Resto Echoes came out, to which it was the cover, so we know that this paper holds Easter eggs. This is Beyonce dressed as Betty Davis for Halloween this year. She captions it, Betty Davis in my bones. This is Beyonce shouting out Betty Davis in the Queen's remix with Madonna, that blends Break My Soul and Madonna's Vogue. This is Madonna's original though, where she shouts out another Betty Davis, known as one of the greatest actresses in Hollywood history. This is the African-American folk song Black Betty, recorded by American folk blues singer and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee Lead Belly. So what does all this mean, and who is Betty Black? I want to focus on Betty Davis here because, like Linda Martell, I believe she's a huge inspiration for Beyonce, and she wants people to know her for a reason. Betty Davis was largely overlooked in her lifetime, and her boldness was a major reason why. As a pioneering funk and rock artist in the 1970s, she pushed boundaries with her unapologetically raw lyrics, provocative stage presence and sexually liberated persona, which were far ahead of their time. This was especially controversial for a black woman in an era when society expected women, particularly black women, to conform to narrow standards of respectability. Critics and audiences often labeled her as too raunchy or vulgar, ignoring her artistry and innovation. The music industry also wasn't ready to support someone as uncompromising as Betty Davis. Many radio stations refused to play her music and record labels struggled to market her. This lack of support limited her commercial success.
All right, so we're getting into the history of Miss Betty Davis, and you know the reason why she didn't get her just due in the music industry at the time when she was coming out. They say she was too sexually provocative. You know, she was controversial. They didn't know how to place an overtly sexual black woman that was, you know, coming out willingly doing this herself and pushing the limits on what people thought was acceptable in the music industry, very similarly to Linda Martell, who was basically one of Beyonce's muses for the Cowboy Carter album as far as the country genre is concerned. Now we're paying homage possibly to Miss Betty Davis. So Betty Black could very well be a new persona, alter ego, or something of the like as we go into this Act 3. You know, Beyonce has always, flipped into different modes. You know, we're very familiar with Sasha Fierce. But this could be another layer or another piece of the puzzle, adding Betty Black, because clearly she's not using Betty Davis' name, but a character inspired by Betty Davis could be Betty Black for us to, learn our history on where this stuff is coming from, right? Because she was a trailblazer, again, in the soul, funk, rock, kind of melting pot of music, more aggressive, taking the funk and making it more aggressive. And she did it in a way that was more sexual, she was more liberated. She basically, from the sounds of what we have, she was a precursor to a lot of the ladies that we're watching right now that are, doing their thing, thriving, and, practicing body autonomy to their own benefit in the music industry today. So I'm not surprised that this would be a source of inspiration, right?
Betty Davis especially faced backlash from her own people. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, also known as the NAACP, criticized her provocative image and accused her of perpetuating what they perceived as negative stereotypes about black women. At the time, the organization was heavily invested in promoting a more respectable image of black Americans to combat systemic racism and uplift that community. They believed Davis's unapologetic embrace of sexual liberation and bold stage persona reinforced hypersexualized stereotypes of black women, a harmful trope often used to justify racism and misogyny. While her contemporaries, Mick Jagger, George Clinton, and David Bowie, could be provocative without similar scrutiny, black women like Betty face harsher criticism for stepping outside of the traditional societal norms, while her white male contemporaries were able to express themselves freely and be embraced by it, eventually being canonized in the halls of history as music's legends. Meanwhile, Betty Davis is not remembered. True to her character, though, Betty refused to tone down her artistry or conform to expectations of respectability. She viewed her work as empowering and liberating, creating space for black women to embrace their full humanity, including their sexuality, on their terms. The controversy with the NAACP, combined with criticism from other segments of the black community, added to the challenges she faced in achieving widespread success. It also contributed to her being misunderstood and marginalized during her prime. The church, as a cornerstone of the black community, often preached restraint and purity, making Betty's liberated image seem rebellious or immoral. This resistance contributed to her marginalization and lack of mainstream success during her career.
And I believe Miss Betty was also from North Carolina. You also got to keep that in perspective as well, coming from the South, the conservative South of the earlier times. Of course, we've gone away from that in our culture. But if you look at other cultures in the South, they still kind of hold on to a lot of that stuff. That's why you got people like Number 47 who continue to thrive and, have support despite all of the bullshit they represent. But that's a whole nother thing. You know what I mean? We ain't got to get into all that political stuff. I'm just saying you got to also keep in perspective the acceptance of somebody who's coming out pushing this type of line, pushing this type of freedom in a environment, in a society where it's like we don't do that, right?
Even though her music was groundbreaking and influential, I can't help but think of Beyoncé's Church Girl. Both Betty Davis and Beyoncé's Church Girl explore conflicts between embracing sexuality and defying societal norms, especially those related to black womanhood and the church's moral expectations. After releasing 3 iconic albums, Betty stepped away from the music industry in the 1970s. Her retreat from the spotlight contributed her to being overlooked for decades. Beyoncé paying homage to Betty Davis in the Queen's remix and her Halloween costume this year, with the caption "Betty Davis in my bones," highlights Betty as a trailblazer who paved the way for artists like Beyoncé to be accepted. Interestingly, the names Betty Davis with an E and Betty Davis with a Y don't only draw parallel in their pronunciations, but their attitudes as women. Both were fiercely outspoken, but their boldness was received very differently. Betty Davis, despite her controversies and battles with Hollywood standards, became one of the most celebrated actresses of all time, with enduring acclaim and multiple awards, including the coveted Oscar for Best Actress. In contrast, Betty Davis with a Y, her sexual liberation and music and image were met with societal backlash, leading to her marginalization and decades of obscurity. Could this be Beyoncé saying that she is embracing the black Betty, not the white one? It reminds me a lot of how Post Malone, who's from New York and has no historical affiliation with country music, forayed into the genre with his album F1 Trillion and was met with critical acclaim, including 4 CMA nominations for his song "I Had Some Help." Meanwhile, Cowboy Carter by a black Texan woman with deep Southern roots was nominated for none and fiercely rejected by the country music community.
Come on now, we saw that play out in real time this year. And a lot of folks, they jumped in my comments when I talked about it, like, are we surprised? Da-da-da-da-da. She shouldn't be expecting this from them. She shouldn't be, you know what I mean? All of this different stuff. It seemed like certain people just didn't want to see her succeed in that space, which I didn't really understand. It's like when we push boundaries, when we push, into uncomfortable territory, our trailblazers are supposed to, we're supposed to rally behind them. Even if we don't necessarily understand everything, I would think somebody like a Beyoncé, she's putting us on the history. She's putting us on to all of this stuff. Why not support, right? It took a lot. And remember the resistance that she received from different radio stations in country music. The country charts didn't necessarily want to, give her all of the credit. You know what I mean? The CMAs, like, I'm not saying we're supposed to get up and boycott and go picket and do all that type of shit, but with the voices that we do have, especially, come on now, without this mic and this camera in front of me, I wouldn't have the same voice, right? So I utilize my platform to talk about things at certain times that may not be the most popular, but they have meaning, right? And everybody can exercise their right to do the same thing the same way. Now, how you want to exercise it, that's up to you. But I'm just saying, like, some of the comments that I seen from people that was just like not open to the idea of Beyoncé even tiptoeing into this arena, even though it's something that we created, it was odd to me.
Though I believe Beyoncé is a genuine fan of Post Malone, and of course he of her, can we take a minute to talk about how he was looking at her during the Levi's jeans performance at the Beyoncé Bowls? I think it's poignant that she chose to bring him out for the Beyoncé Bowl to perform Cowboy Carter for the first time. He is a guest in her house, yet he gets the support from the country music audience even though he has no country roots, because he is a white man, which leads me into the song Black Betty. The song Black Betty has a complex history rooted in oral traditions. Originally sung by enslaved African Americans, it is thought to have served as a work song or field holler. The earliest known recordings of the songs were made in 1933 by folklorists John and Alan Lomax, who captured it during their efforts to document folk music in the American South. Like Betty, Amana, oh, like Betty, Amana. The Lomaxes recorded James Ironhead Baker and his fellow prisoners singing the psalm at a Texas penitentiary, preserving its raw rhythmic power. In the
Hey, man, why the hell you tried to sing that shit yourself, man? Don't do that shit, man. If you gonna do the AI voice shit, don't sing nothing, okay? Gee, damn.
following years, the song was popularized further by blues musician Leadbelly, real name Huddy Ledbetter, who adapted and performed it in his signature style. More like bit it, namba lamb, more like bit it, namba lamb, oh big bad bitty, namba lambo. And he is an inductee of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Lead Belly's version of Black Betty added his own flair to the traditional melody, bringing the song wider recognition and highlighted its origins in African American musical traditions, maintaining its historical significance as a reflection of the resilience and creativity of those who first sang it under oppressive circumstances. However, the most mainstream version of Black Betty is the 1977 hit by the white rock band Ram Jam, which brought the song to a broader audience. This version, with a hard rock riff and energetic performance, became a commercial success. To this day, it is still their biggest song.
All right, so now we're going into the history of this Black Betty song, right? Which originates from our people, goes back all the way to the 30s. And now we're talking about how it's been taken, it's been whitewashed, it's been gentrified by some rock band called Ram Jam. And it's the biggest song of their career when they covered it and took it to a more mainstream, as they would call it, but as we would call it, white audience. Whereas our originators didn't get the same love and, credit that they did. I'm sure there's people out there that know that this Ram Jam version of the song that don't even know where it came from and be jamming to that motherfucker.
This overshadowed the song's deep cultural roots, because sadly, the mainstream adaptation did not acknowledge or remember the original creators of the song, the African American slaves who sang it as a work song, and the folk musicians like Lead Belly who helped preserve it. Ram Jam did not appear to publicly acknowledge Lead Belly or those prisoners as the original artists in their mainstream success with the track, and there was little to no mention of his deep roots in the African American folk music tradition. This is a common issue in the music industry, where black artists' contributions are often overshadowed or erased when their music is reinterpreted by white artists and brought into mainstream culture. Interestingly, the term Black Betty is known to have been a nickname given to a number of objects, including a bottle of whiskey, of course thinking of Sir Davis, a whip, a penitentiary transfer wagon, and in more modern song references, a Black Betty can allude to a fast car or a motorcycle. We see Beyoncé dressed as Betty Davis on the cover of her album This Is It, where she's perched on top of a motorcycle. This reminded me of the photo of Beyoncé on top of a motorcycle in her 2022 Vogue shoot. Could this all be connected to whatever is happening on January 14th? Given that Beyoncé is incredibly intentional, teasing the Echo paper months before the release of her and Travis Scott's song Del Resto Echoes, it seems unlikely that the prominent placement of the Black Betty tour on the front page and the cryptic page 14 reference, with 25 characters aligning to 1:14:25, is coincidental. I have a theory that January 14th is going to be a blend of something with Acts 2 going into Act 3. I'm not sure if the visuals will come in the form of a film until after all 3 acts are released, though I am still convinced there will be a film. Given that Beyoncé is on a horse in a football field for this teaser, it's visually linked to the Beyoncé Ball teasers. I think potentially it could be a documentary on Netflix where Beyoncé is thanking the artists who paved the way for her in country music and sharing the history of black cowboys. Or maybe it could be a select few shows called Beyoncé and the Rodeo Chitlin Circuit, as she owns many trademarks with this name. I just strongly feel that we will getting something and then ushering in Act 3 or a tour. I do think Act 3 will be rock and funk influence, featuring people like Chuck Berry, Prince, and Betty Davis, much like Wynton Martell, Dolly Parton, and Willie Nelson were featured throughout Pappwood Carter. Prince passed in 2016, Chuck Berry in 2017, and Davis in 2022, but given the fact that Beyoncé recorded Thick 10 years before Renaissance came out, which was confirmed by the producer The Dream, I have no doubt that she has recordings with these legends in her vault. The narrative of Black Betty, or Betty Black, ties directly to the broader pattern of cultural erasure in American music history. What happened in country music, where black pioneers were pushed aside, mirrored what happened in rock music, and this is why I do strongly believe that Act 3 will have a rock influence, given her homages to Betty Davis and Prince. The visionary talents of artists like Betty Davis was denied and marginalized because she defied societal expectations for black women at the time. Meanwhile, her male counterparts are cemented in the books of rock and roll history. This is something Beyoncé is still fighting for to this very day. But the thing is, Beyoncé is bigger than any CMA's performance. She is bigger than all of that, and she is creating her own lane and does not need to fit into the systems that were built on racism, like the CMAs.
All right. So shout out to Lord Breakers. Cool video. And I think you definitely onto something. You know what I'm saying? Again, there's people out there that have already been up on game, already predicted some of this stuff. I even said, I figured she was gonna go in the direction of rock and roll with Act 3, although I would love to get that that rap album. I just may never get it. It's cool with me, you know what I mean? But a man can hope and dream, fuck it. But realistically, if we look at where she's been coming from with this Renaissance whole presentation, it seems like she would go in the direction of the development of rock and roll, which starts with blues, funk, soul, rock, all being, you know what I mean? So I can see that. I wouldn't be a surprise, you know what I mean? And I've also seen a conversation circulating that people are uncomfortable with all of the USA presentation that Beyonce's been doing with, especially with this Cowboy Carter thing. And I think people are being overly critical without, maybe y'all understand, maybe you don't. I'm not saying that you gotta be of, a certain IQ level to listen to Beyonce. I would never say that, or to tune into what she's doing. But I think you do gotta have a certain level of awareness of where she's trying to come from, right? When we get into the traditions of what we do as American Black people, unfortunately, we like to distance ourselves from that American part. And that seems to be a grander conversation now that, we've got this whole FBA thing, which is causing a lot of division within our community, you know what I'm saying, as far as like our brothers and sisters from the diaspora are concerned, which I don't really want to get into that conversation, right? But with that thought process of us being, Black people that were born in America, our ancestors, those of us that do have ancestors that were, here prior, we have our own contributions to what this America is. You know what I'm saying? It's a dark past, but it is a part of our very fabric, right? We came and we built shit here. We trailblazed things. We created things that have gone on to become transmuted into other things without receiving the credit. So what it seems like to me is Beyonce, with the usage of the American imagery, the USA imagery, is letting people know that you cannot have an America without our contributions. It would not be the America that you know it to be. And she uses her medium, which is her music and her visual representation, to remind people of that. So if it makes you uncomfortable, I would just say take a couple seconds to just really think about the role that we play in this country. As we do live here, we do contribute here, we do a lot of work and have done a lot of work. Our culture gets poached. The cool factor comes from us most of the time, and then it goes mainstream, and then we see other people reap the benefits of that. To think that Beyonce isn't utilizing that thought process when she's doing what she's doing, then there would be no reason for her to be stepping out into reminding the people about the pioneers of house music. You know what I'm saying? There would be no reason to tell people about the pioneers who came in country music before the white people that we typically see get the credit for that genre of music. It only makes sense. Again, she's doing it in her way because she is a musician, and there's a very rich history in our music that speaks to our experience and our just overall lifestyle and livelihood as it pertains to this country, because music has been a coping mechanism for many of us throughout our lifetimes and our generations past. So why not? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know shit. Let me know what y'all think about this down below in the comments. Be sure to like and share this video. If this is your first time seeing me on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, become an insider. I will catch y'all on the next one. Peace.
Can't King of my city and cul-de-sac. Coming out swinging like soldier rag. Leading my people like quarterback. But I study this shit, I'm an almanac. Had to get up and grind. Knowledge is booming, I'm here to apply. Came with the chip and the dip, it just single the mind. We finna do more than survive. I need my check. Spinning the block for the Gouda. We hitting the jeweler to flood out the net. We don't do beef for computers, I'm straight out the sewer. We come when you rest. Niggas be looking perplexed, so keeping my foot on their neck. No map, I trust my gut for the quest. But drama, I'm fully abreast. I was ready for years and they doubted me. All of a sudden they tell me they proud of me. I been dropping these haters like calories. Cross them out, I came back with some boundaries. Stand for my honor, but too raw, no corner. Packing the stick with a drummer. When I catch my bad, won't fumble. I done came too far to be humble.